This is Pat Torm, and today I'm going to show you how do I Winforms WPF integration. So the idea is we're going to use a WPF component right here in my standard Winforms using Visual Studio 2010 Beta 2, and we're going to be able to interact with that component. So the first thing I need to do is go to my application and add a new item. That item is going to be a WPF component, and his name's a user control, so we're going to call him UC menu. Easy enough. I'll just make a simple menu with a couple of buttons on it. Visuals 2010 jumps into the editor for WPF, and I'm going to come down here and adjust a couple of things. First of all, I don't care for the grid, so I'll take that out of there. And then I'm going to resize this to something that's more like a menu. That looks about right. Move to my toolbox and add a stack panel. And make him about the right size. Nothing tricky so far. Hit F4 to get my properties back and tell the stack panel that I need to have its orientation to be horizontal. I can go to my toolbox here, grab a button, grab another button, and I'll come down here to the XAML and just identify the buttons more clearly. I'm going to save that, and we'll do a rebuild. In the beta at this point, you may well see an error pop up. If that happens, just go ahead and let it resolve the error. Alright, let's take a look at my code behind. I'm going to view the code. And the first thing we have to do is to define a delegate that can be passed up to the calling application, the WinForm. And it's going to be public. It's going to be a delegate. It's going to be a sub whose name is going to be UC menu event handler. Now he carries two parameters. By val, he's going to carry the sender. By val, we're going to carry the args, which are going to be as a UC menu event args. We don't have one of those just yet, but we will in just a second. The reason I'm doing it this way instead of just passing a standard event arg or a negative one, an empty one, is to give you a chance to carry something back besides the fact that the button had been clicked. So we're going to do that by creating a class just for UC menu event args, and it's going to be public. And it's going to inherit from event args. Now I'm going to give it a method in here in case you need to instantiate it that will give you a place to put extra things you might want to carry back, properties, that sort of thing, by just creating a sub new. And again, this isn't strictly necessary, but you'll find it handy if you actually create a working menu. Next thing I need to do here is to create an on button click event. On button click, and he's going to be of the type UC menu event handler. Now jumping over to my designer in XAML for a minute, I need to add my events right here for what happens when button 1 or button 2 is clicked. So I'll go over to my properties and tell it on the click event I wanted to just do button click. And because I'm going to have one event handle both buttons, I just have to add button 2 dot click here. So when either button gets pushed, something's going to happen. It's going to pass in the sender, and it's going to be handled locally by my on button click event. So all I have to do with that is to raise it. So I'm going to raise event on button click. And I'm going to send it the sender and a new UC menu event args. And with any luck, when I save this, it'll actually recompile. Okay, so far so good. Now I'll go back to my form. And how do I get this thing to be hosted on the form? Well, since we did a build, it should show up over here in my toolbar. And there it is, UC menu. I can just drag it and drop it. And depending on which flavor of the beta you're using, you may get an error here. Just trap down that error and you'll see the solution. I'll resize this. Hit its property here and tell it it's okay to dock at top. Just to simulate an actual menu. Now the only issue I have, of course, is that these buttons may be raising their events inside the XAML code in WPF, but they're not actually being received here by the form. And if you look at the form control that hosts this, you'll see it's called an element host. And if you go to its events, it doesn't really know anything about clicking events going on inside. So we're going to fix that right now. I'm going to go to the view code on my form. And the first thing we want to do here is when the form loads, I need to make sure that my user control is initialized. In this case, it's UC menu 1 dot initialize component. And now I need to add a handler for my component for when the click event does happen. So I'll just add handler. And it's going to be to the UC menu. And now you can see that on button click event is available. And I'm going to make it the address of and I'll call it the WinForm button click. And of course he's complaining because I don't have one of those yet. Now all I have to do is create a way to handle that. My WinForm button click event, and it's going to take a bival of the sender as an object. And he's also going to take as event args. Now to handle this button correctly, what I really need to do is to cast it back so that the WinForms control knows that the type of button is a WPF. So I'm just going to dim a local button here, and he's going to be as a windows.control .button, which is the definition of the WPF button. And I'm going to make that equal to a direct cast of the sender into, of course, okay, now that I have the button, I can do almost anything I want with that button, since I actually have an instance of it locally. But to make things easier just for the demo, I'm just going to show it in a message box. In this case, I'll just use the BTN dot, and you see here as I come down I have the context property, unlike the regular WinForm button, which would have a text property. Everybody's happy, so I run the application. If I hit button 2, there's my button 2 event. Button 1, there's my button 1 event. So there you have it. That's how you can use a standard WinForm control that uses WPF components and raise the events from WPF components up to where you can actually use them in the WinForm control. And you can make a pretty slick looking menu if you wanted to. So this is Pat Tormey. How do I WinForms WPF integration? Jump right in.